It's been a couple of days since I've done any vlogging. We had a freak snowstorm, so did a lot of the northern parts of the United States. So regardless, here I am now. It's 34 degrees, which is a far cry from the 60s and 70s we had only a week ago, which kind of annoys me, but what are you gonna do? That's life in New York. Anyway, so what I'm going to talk about today is why I chose Harley Davidson as a brand, but then more specifically why I chose the Roadster Roadster. So what it came down for me was, here's kind of how it went. I have a video on what made me want to ride, so you can watch that, and then I'll give you a little bit more background than I'll give you in this video. But essentially, I was dragged to the MSF course, not really wanting to ride, which is very, very unusual, I think, for anyone. And then after the course, or during the course, I just absolutely fell in love with riding and decided that that was something I wanted to do. And then obviously after that, so after the course, it was pretty much game on. You know, I wanted to get a bike, I wanted to get riding. So I had a couple options. Being a 16 and a couple year old kid, I could have, obviously I didn't have too much money, so I basically was stuck between getting a cheap sport bike, getting some type of Japanese cruiser, or convincing my dad to chip in a little bit and get a Harley. Now, my dad always rode Harleys ever since the 80s, so he had a vested interest in trying to get me and my brother on a Harley. So with a little bit of convincing, I got him to chip in a little bit, and I was able to buy the Harley, but that's not really the point at the moment. So what happened was, big problem with a sport bike, beyond any of the reasons that you wouldn't want a sport bike. God, it is cold today. The biggest problem for somebody who's young is the insurance on sport bikes are unreal, especially in New York. New York has really high insurance rates, as I'm sure does like California and some of the other, like, what I'll call some of the other big states that have a lot of population and stuff. Because what happens is people get in more accidents. So in our case, because of New York City, I think that's why our insurance rates get driven up a lot. So I kid you not, I quoted out some insurance, and this is under my parents' insurance policy. This was not with my own insurance policy, which would have therefore made it cost more. But they were talking $2,000 a year for insurance on a motorcycle. So you have a sport bike that's worth like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, somewhere in that range, and they were asking like $2,000, like $1,500 to $2,000 for insurance on a 600cc sport bike. I just almost dropped the phone when I heard that, and so that was the real sealer for me. Is I'm like, I just wouldn't want to afford anyways, riding a sport bike. I think that's crazy for that much insurance. Now I'm sure in 95, in 47 of the other states, I'm sure that the insurance isn't nearly that much, but New York just has high insurance rates, period, which sucks, but it's just the case. So then, okay, I started looking at my new options, and personally, to me, all of the Japanese cruisers that, like the V-twin Japanese cruisers, I've just personally never liked the styling of them. In general, what it came down to was sport bikes had a little bit lower cost to buy, a lot lower if I was willing to go older, but overall similar price as the Harleys that I would have bought, aka the Sportster. So the price wasn't too much of an issue, but the insurance thing was, my bike's insurance, even for me, is $170 a year, I think. Like, it's not even a significant amount of money. I spent more money, like, I probably lost more money in couch cushions than the insurance cost for this thing. I mean, I'm not trying to say $200 isn't a lot of money, but in comparison, right, to $2,000, a year or $1,000 a year. It's just nothing in comparison. And I don't really know why. Obviously the Harley's a less performance oriented bike than a sport bike, but you're still a 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old on a motorcycle, so I'm surprised that I'm very surprised the insurance in New York is that cheap for it, but I'm not complaining on that one. Why did I choose the Sportster Roadster? Well, I'll be honest with you, I kind of fell into it, but I did truly prefer them when I was looking for bikes, but not having known too much about bikes, I probably would have bought a Sportster Custom and not really thought much of it then, but I really truly did lean toward the Roadster, especially because of the looks. I mean, I let me put it this way. I looked at one Custom and I didn't buy that, and I looked at two Roadsters and I bought one of the Roadsters. So, like in person. Obviously I looked at more online, but what am I doing? There's a turning line here. To me, being 19 years old, almost, to me what a Roadster does is it gives me a bike that, first of all, I think is much cooler than a sport bike. I'm personally much more of a fan of how it looks and the comfort of it. You know, I go on 400-mile rides pretty comfortably. A lot of people don't think Sportsters are comfortable, and they aren't, I guess, compared to the big twins. But you have to understand, it all comes from the perspective, because if you're coming from a sport bike background, which I wasn't, but if you are, then any cruiser is probably going to be a lot more comfortable than your sport bike. So people sometimes forget to look from that perspective. You know, if you rode a Dyna your whole life and then went up to a touring bike, yeah, of course you're not going to think that the Sportster is going to be comfortable. But it's just a matter of perspective and age, I think. If you're 20 years old, you can ride a Sportster anywhere you want, and it's not going to bother you. If you're 60 years old, you're probably going to want a touring bike, but regardless. So it gave me a more comfortable bike. It gave me something that I think is much cooler and much more fun to own and just badass, I guess you could say. It gave me a bike that I think is a lot more versatile. I was talking to a guy, and I have personally almost done it myself. I kid you not, you can almost drag a knee. And this guy online I was talking to said he did drag a knee on a track day on a Roadster. And I'm sorry, but dragging a knee on a Harley-Davidson cruiser, that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know what gets cooler than that. Anybody can go fast through turns on a sport bike, to say. It's kind of like saying anyone can go fast in a Bugatti Veyron. Yeah, anybody can hit the gas pedal. That's relatively easy. Obviously, I know it's harder than that, but that's not the point. The point is it takes, to me, it takes true skill to wheelie a Harley or to go fast around turns on a Harley or whatever that you can't necessarily, or that's just easier to do on a sport bike. So, to me, from that perspective, from a purely technical perspective, even though you're going slower around a turn, it's a lot dang cooler if you're doing it on a Harley, because it's probably taking a lot more effort to do it and a lot more skill, because it's a 600-pound motorcycle. And then also, I guess, so that's my reason, I guess, for choosing the Roadster, is that I loved the taller suspension, front and rear. It gave me the cornering capabilities that I wanted. The last thing that I really want to mention is the best part of, come on, Jake, this is the last part, you can do it. Come on, come on! I forget what I was going to say. And finally, to me, what a Harley gives me is it gives me a built-in stupidity stopper. Let's call it that. On a sport bike, you can't, or on a sport bike, even a 600, you can go, I don't know, like 150, 160, I guess. I don't know, somewhere around there, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But the point is that you can go really fast, and the bike is very capable of allowing you to do some really stupid stuff. Now, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm not the most self-controlled person in the world. I try my best, I really do, but my right hand gets very, very happy at times, and it really wants to do this. You know, that kind of thing. So, when that happens, not having as much power as a 600 or especially 1000cc sport bike gives you, kind of winds up being a good thing. I'm not sure that I would be very well off, especially with a 1000cc sport bike, because I know that day would come that I'd see some really flat stretch of road and be like, yeah, we're gonna test this out, and I'd be going 190 down the highway or whatever, and some cop would pull me over, and I'd be in a whole world of trouble, and I'd probably lose my license and not be able to ride or drive. So that's not really what I need. I think that I'm a lot better off in this thing because it's a hell of a lot of fun, but it's not so fast that it's just gonna totally get me, you know, get me pulled over and stuff. And I truly do think that, first of all, police seem, anyway, to not pull over motorcycles too often. What I've seen, that seems to be true. Holy shit, the fucking garbage just fell off. But anyways, I have a lot of editing to do, so thank you for watching. Try not to get run over by falling bags of garbage, and otherwise, ride safe. Goodbye.